kill you. I will because I'm a Viking. Hear that? I'm a Viking!
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
His performance anchors the film's emotional core, particularly in the complex father-son relationship that drives much of the character development throughout the story. The supporting cast brings depth and humor to the world of Burke, with each actor carefully chosen to embody the distinct personalities of the Dragon Riders. Gabriel Howell takes on the role of Snotlout, the boastful cousin, whose bravado often masks deeper insecurities. Julian Dennison brings his natural comedic timing to Fishlegs, the dragon enthusiast whose knowledge proves invaluable to the group's success. The twin characters Roughnut and Toughnut, played by Bronwyn James and Harry Trevaldwin respectively, provide comic relief while also demonstrating the chaotic energy that makes the Dragon Riders such a formidable team when they work together. The film's visual approach represents a significant achievement in bringing animated characters to live-action reality. The dragons, particularly Toothless, required extensive research and development to create creatures that felt both realistic and magical. The design team studied real animals, particularly large cats and birds of prey, to understand how creatures of this size might move and behave. The result is a Toothless who maintains the playful cat-like personality that made him so endearing in the animated films while appearing as a believable, living creature that could exist in the real world. The island of Burke itself becomes almost a character in the film, with the production design team creating a Viking settlement that feels both historically grounded and fantastical. The architecture draws from authentic Norse building techniques while incorporating elements that suggest a society that has learned to coexist with dragons. The landscape, with its dramatic cliffs, hidden coves, and soaring peaks, provides the perfect backdrop for aerial sequences that showcase the freedom and exhilaration of dragon flight. The film's action sequences represent some of the most technically challenging scenes ever attempted in family entertainment. The dragon flying sequences required innovative camera work and visual effects to create the sensation of soaring through the skies alongside these magnificent creatures. The filmmakers used a combination of practical effects, including large-scale mechanical dragons for close-up interactions and computer-generated imagery for the more elaborate flight sequences. This hybrid approach ensures that the human actors can genuinely interact with their dragon companions, while still delivering the spectacular aerial choreography that the story demands. The theme of understanding and acceptance runs throughout the film, reflecting contemporary concerns about prejudice, environmental protection, and the importance of questioning inherited beliefs. The Vikings' initial fear and hatred of dragons serves as a metaphor for how societies often demonize what they don't understand, while Hiccup's journey represents the courage required to challenge these preconceptions. The film doesn't shy away from the complexity of these themes, showing that change is difficult and often met with resistance, but that it's ultimately necessary for growth and survival. The music and sound design play crucial roles in creating the film's emotional impact. John Powell's return to compose the score ensures continuity with the beloved animated films while allowing for new musical themes that take advantage of a full orchestral arrangement and the dynamic range of modern cinema sound systems. The sound of dragonflight in particular required careful attention to create an auditory experience that would be both thrilling and believable, combining the whoosh of wind with the powerful wing beats of creatures that could realistically carry human riders. The film's pacing balances character development with action sequences, ensuring that audiences become invested in the relationships between characters before the major conflicts arise. The early scenes focus on establishing Hiccup's status as an outsider in Viking society, his relationship with his father, and his first encounters with Toothless. These quieter moments are essential for building the emotional foundation that makes the later action sequences meaningful rather than merely spectacular. The production faced unique challenges in creating a film that would appeal to both children and adults, maintaining the family-friendly tone of the animated original while taking advantage of live action's ability to create more intense and realistic conflict. The violence, while present, is handled in a way that serves the story without becoming gratuitous, focusing on the emotional consequences of conflict rather than graphic depictions of battle. The film's exploration of leadership and responsibility comes through Hiccup's reluctant journey toward accepting his role as a future chief of Burke. Unlike traditional hero's journey narratives, Hiccup's path to leadership doesn't involve becoming a better warrior, but rather becoming a better communicator and bridge builder between different groups. This message resonates particularly strongly in contemporary contexts where collaborative leadership is increasingly valued over authoritarian approaches. The dragon designs extend beyond Toothless to include a wide variety of species, each with their own distinct characteristics and abilities. From the massive Gronkle to the swift deadly Nader, each dragon type required extensive development to create creatures that felt like they belonged to a cohesive ecosystem while still being visually distinct and memorable. The attention to detail in dragon behavior, including their interactions with both humans and other dragons, adds layers of authenticity to the fantastical elements of the story. The film's climax brings together all the thematic and narrative elements in a confrontation that tests not only the characters' physical courage, but their commitment to the new understanding they've developed about dragons and their place in the world. The resolution emphasizes that true victory comes not from defeating enemies, but from transforming them into allies, a message that gives the adventure story deeper meaning and relevance. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is 2 HR 5 min long, allowing sufficient time for character development while maintaining the pacing necessary for an engaging adventure film. This runtime represents a careful balance between giving the story room to breathe and maintaining the momentum that keeps audiences engaged throughout the theatrical experience. The film's success demonstrates the potential for animated properties to make successful transitions to live action when approached with respect for the source material and a clear vision for what the new medium can add to the story. Rather than simply recreating the animated film with live actors, the 2025 adaptation uses the opportunities provided by live-action filmmaking to deepen the emotional connections between characters and create a more immersive experience of the world of Burke. The legacy of the 2025 How to Train Your Dragon extends beyond its individual success to influence how future animated to live-action adaptations are approached. By prioritizing storytelling over spectacle and character development over action, the film sets a standard for how beloved animated properties can be respectfully and successfully translated to live action, while bringing something new and valuable to audiences who love these stories and characters. The live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, released in 2025, represents a significant milestone in the evolution of beloved animated properties transitioning to live-action cinema. Plans for a live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon were announced in February 2023. With DeBlois returning to write, direct, and produce after previously spearheading the animated trilogy. This ambitious project brings the magical world of Burke and its dragon inhabitants to life through cutting-edge filmmaking techniques, practical effects, and digital wizardry that promises to transport audiences into the Viking realm like never before. The film's production journey began with the recognition that the original animated trilogy, which started in 2010, had created such a rich and beloved universe that it deserved the full cinematic treatment that only live action could provide. Director Dean DeBlois, who had been instrumental in shaping the animated films, understood the delicate balance required to honor the source material while creating something fresh and exciting for both longtime fans and newcomers. The decision to remake the first film rather than continue the story beyond the animated trilogy was strategic, allowing the filmmakers to reintroduce the fundamental themes and relationships that made the original so compelling, while utilizing the visual storytelling capabilities that have advanced dramatically since 2010, as an ancient threat endangers both Vikings and dragons alike on the Isle of Berk. The friendship between Hiccup, an inventive Viking, and Toothless, a night fury dragon, becomes the key to both species forging a new future together. The core narrative remains faithful to the beloved story that audiences fell in love with, focusing on the transformative relationship between a young Viking who doesn't fit the traditional warrior mold and a powerful dragon who becomes his unlikely companion. This central relationship serves as the emotional anchor for the entire film, demonstrating themes of acceptance, understanding, and the power of friendship to overcome centuries of mistrust and conflict. The casting choices for the 2025 adaptation reflect a careful balance between honoring the original voice cast and bringing fresh perspectives to these iconic characters. It stars Mason Thames, Nico Parker, Gabriel Howell, Julian Dennison, Bronwyn James, Harry Trevaldwin, Peter Serafinovich, and Nick Frost, with Gerard Butler reprising his role as Psyche the Vast from the animated films. Mason Thames, known for his compelling performance in The Black Phone, takes on the challenging role of Hiccup, bringing both vulnerability and determination to the character. His casting represents the filmmaker's commitment to finding an actor who could embody the character's journey from outcast to hero while maintaining the relatability that made Hiccup so beloved in the animated version. Nico Parker's casting as Astrid brings another layer of authenticity to the production. Parker, who has demonstrated remarkable range in her previous work including The Last of Us, brings both strength and nuance to the role of the fierce Viking warrior who becomes Hiccup's closest ally and eventual romantic interest. The dynamic between Thames and Parker was crucial to the film's success, as their chemistry needed to convince audiences of a relationship that evolves from skepticism and rivalry to mutual respect and love, all while navigating the dangerous world of dragon training and Viking politics. Gerard Butler previously portrayed Stoic in the animated trilogy, making him the only voice actor from the original movies to return for the live-action film. Butler's return as Stoic the Vast provides a crucial bridge between the animated and live-action versions, offering continuity for fans while bringing his physical presence and acting gravitas to the role of Hiccup's father. His performance anchors the film's emotional core, particularly in the complex father-son relationship that drives much of the character development throughout the story. The supporting cast brings depth and humor to the world of Berk, with each actor carefully chosen to embody the distinct personalities of the Dragon Riders. Gabriel Howell takes on the role of Snotlout, the boastful cousin whose bravado often masks deeper insecurities. Julian Dennison brings his natural comedic timing to Fishlegs, the dragon enthusiast, whose knowledge proves invaluable to the group's success. The twin characters Roughnut and Toughnut, played by Bronwyn James and Harry Trevaldwin respectively, provide comic relief while also demonstrating the chaotic energy that makes the Dragon Riders such a formidable team when they work together. The film's visual approach represents a significant achievement in bringing animated characters to live-action reality. The dragons, particularly Toothless, required extensive research and development to create creatures that felt both realistic and magical. The design team studied real animals, particularly large cats and birds of prey, to understand how creatures of this size might move and behave. The result is a Toothless who maintains the playful, cat-like personality that made him so endearing in the animated films, while appearing as a believable, living creature that could exist in the real world. The island of Berk itself becomes almost a character in the film, with the production design team creating a Viking settlement that feels both historically grounded and fantastical. The architecture draws from authentic Norse building techniques while incorporating elements that suggest a society that has learned to coexist with dragons. The landscape, with its dramatic cliffs, hidden coves, and soaring peaks, provides the perfect backdrop for aerial sequences that showcase the freedom and exhilaration of dragon flight. The film's action sequences represent some of the most technically challenging scenes ever attempted in family entertainment. The dragon flying sequences required innovative camera work and visual effects to create the sensation of soaring through the skies alongside these magnificent creatures. The filmmakers used a combination of practical effects, including large-scale mechanical dragons for close-up interactions, and computer-generated imagery for the more elaborate flight sequences. This hybrid approach ensures that the human actors can genuinely interact with their dragon companions while still delivering the spectacular aerial choreography that the story demands. The theme of understanding and acceptance runs throughout the film, reflecting contemporary concerns about prejudice, environmental protection, and the importance of questioning inherited beliefs. The Vikings' initial fear and hatred of dragons serves as a metaphor for how societies often demonize what they don't understand, while Hiccup's journey represents the courage required to challenge these preconceptions. The film doesn't shy away from the complexity of these themes, showing that change is difficult and often met with resistance, but that it's ultimately necessary for growth and survival. The music and sound design play crucial roles in creating the film's emotional impact. John Powell's return to compose the score ensures continuity with the beloved animated films while allowing for new musical themes that take advantage of a full orchestral arrangement and the dynamic range of modern cinema sound systems. The sound of dragonflight in particular required careful attention to create an auditory experience that would be both thrilling and believable, combining the whoosh of wind with the powerful wing beats of creatures that could realistically carry human riders. The film's pacing balances character development with action sequences, ensuring that audiences become invested in the relationships between characters before the major conflicts arise. The early scenes focus on establishing Hiccup's status as an outsider in Viking society, his relationship with his father, and his first encounters with Toothless. These quieter moments are essential for building the emotional foundation that makes the later action sequences meaningful rather than merely spectacular. The production faced unique challenges in creating a film that would appeal to both children and adults, maintaining the family-friendly tone of the animated original while taking advantage of live-action's ability to create more intense and realistic conflict. The violence, while present, is handled in a way that serves the story without becoming gratuitous, focusing on the emotional consequences of conflict rather than graphic depictions of battle. The film's exploration of leadership and responsibility comes through Hiccup's reluctant journey toward accepting his role as a future chief of Berk. Unlike traditional hero's journey narratives, Hiccup's path to leadership doesn't involve becoming a better warrior, but rather becoming a better communicator and bridge builder between different groups. This message resonates particularly strongly in contemporary contexts where collaborative leadership is increasingly valued over authoritarian approaches. The dragon designs extend beyond Toothless to include a wide variety of species, each with their own distinct characteristics and abilities. From the massive Grunkle to the swift, deadly Nader, each dragon type required extensive development to create creatures that felt like they belonged to a cohesive ecosystem while still being visually distinct and memorable. The attention to detail in dragon behavior, including their interactions with both humans and other dragons, adds layers of authenticity to the fantastical elements of the story. The film's climax brings together all the thematic and narrative elements in a confrontation that tests not only the characters' physical courage, but their commitment to the new understanding they've developed about dragons and their place in the world. The resolution emphasizes that true victory comes not from defeating enemies, but from transforming them into allies, a message that gives the adventure story deeper meaning and relevance. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 is 2 HR 5 min long, allowing sufficient time for character development while maintaining the pacing necessary for an engaging adventure film. This runtime represents a careful balance between giving the story room to breathe and maintaining the momentum that keeps audiences engaged throughout the theatrical experience. The film's success demonstrates the potential for animated properties to make successful transitions to live action when approached with respect for the source material and a clear vision for what the new medium can add to the story. Rather than simply recreating the animated film with live actors, the 2025 adaptation uses the opportunities provided by live-action filmmaking to deepen the emotional connections between characters and create a more immersive experience of the world of Berk. The legacy of the 2025 How to Train Your Dragon extends beyond its individual success to influence how future animated to live-action adaptations are approached. By prioritizing storytelling over spectacle and character development over action, the film sets a standard for how beloved animated properties can be respectfully and successfully translated to live action while bringing something new and valuable to audiences who love these stories and characters. And the cinematography of the 2025 adaptation employs groundbreaking techniques to capture both the intimate character moments and the sweeping aerial sequences that define the How to Train Your Dragon experience. The camera work during dragon flight sequences utilizes innovative stabilization technology and drone cinematography to create genuinely immersive perspectives that make audiences feel as though they're soaring alongside Hiccup and Toothless. The visual language of the film draws inspiration from Nordic landscape photography with compositions that emphasize the dramatic natural beauty of the fictional Isle of Berk while maintaining the intimate focus on character relationships that drives the narrative forward. The lighting design reflects the harsh but beautiful northern climate, using natural light sources whenever possible to create authenticity in the Viking settlement scenes while employing more stylized lighting for the magical moments involving dragon encounters. The costume and production design teams invested enormous effort in creating a believable Viking world that honors historical accuracy while accommodating the fantastical elements of the story. The clothing worn by the Vikings reflects authentic Norse textile techniques and materials, with hand-woven fabrics, leather work, and metalwork that demonstrates the craftsmanship that would have been present in such a society. Hiccup's costume evolution throughout the film reflects his character development, beginning with ill-fitting garments that emphasize his status as an outsider and gradually transitioning to clothing that reflects his growing confidence and acceptance within the community. The dragon riding gear required particular attention, as it needed to appear both practical for the dangerous activity of dragon flight while maintaining the aesthetic consistency of the Viking world. The production designers studied historical armor and riding equipment to create pieces that would be both visually appealing and functionally believable. The film's approach to humor maintains the charm and wit of the original animated version, while adapting it for live-action presentation. The comedic timing relies heavily on physical comedy and character-based humor, rather than dialogue-heavy jokes, recognizing that live-action performances require different pacing than animated characters. The twin characters Rough Nut and Tough Nut provide much of the film's comic relief, but their humor is grounded in recognizable sibling dynamics and adolescent behavior rather than purely slapstick comedy. The film's humor also emerges from the cultural clash between Viking traditions and the new reality of dragon partnership, creating situations where characters must navigate between old ways of thinking and new possibilities. This approach to comedy serves the larger themes of the story while providing the lighter moments that make the more serious themes accessible to younger audiences. The dragon training sequences represent some of the most technically complex and emotionally resonant scenes in the film, requiring the integration of practical effects, computer-generated imagery, and carefully choreographed performances from both human actors and animatronic dragon puppets. These scenes needed to convey not just the physical challenges of learning to work with dragons, but the emotional journey of overcoming fear, building trust, and developing communication between species that have been enemies for generations. The progression of these training scenes follows a careful arc that mirrors the emotional development of the human characters, beginning with tentative, fearful interactions and building toward moments of genuine partnership and mutual respect. The physical choreography of these scenes required extensive rehearsal and coordination between actors, puppeteers, and visual effects teams to ensure that the interactions felt natural and believable. The film's exploration of environmental themes reflects contemporary concerns about humanity's relationship with nature and wildlife conservation. The dragons serve as a metaphor for misunderstood wildlife that humans often fear or destroy rather than attempt to understand and coexist. The aerial cinematography techniques pioneered for the dragon flight sequences have influenced how other films approach action scenes involving flying vehicles or creatures should. The lighting and compositing techniques used to integrate practical and digital elements have set new standards for seamless visual effects that maintain the reality of the live-action environment while incorporating fantastical elements. The film's impact on the How to Train Your Dragon franchise extends beyond its individual success to influence potential future installments and related media. The live-action adaptation demonstrates that there is significant audience appetite for stories set in this universe, potentially opening doors for additional live-action films, television series, or other media exploring different aspects of the world of dragons and Vikings. The success of the character portrayals by the new cast creates opportunities for these actors to continue developing their interpretations of these beloved characters in future projects. The visual and technical innovations developed for this film create a foundation that future projects can build upon, establishing a consistent look and feel for live-action interpretations of this animated universe. The educational potential of the 2025 How to Train Your Dragon extends its impact beyond pure entertainment into areas of learning and development. The film's themes of overcoming prejudice, understanding different perspectives, and finding nonviolent solutions to conflicts provide valuable discussion points for families, schools, and community groups. The historical elements related to Viking culture offer opportunities for learning about medieval Scandinavian history, while the environmental themes connect to contemporary discussions about conservation and wildlife protection. The character development arcs, particularly Hiccup's journey from outcast to leader, provide examples of different leadership styles and the importance of staying true to one's values, even when facing pressure to conform to traditional expectations. The film's portrayal of disability and difference through Hiccup's character offers meaningful representation that resonates with audiences who don't fit traditional heroic molds. Hiccup's physical limitations and unconventional approach to problem solving are presented not as weaknesses to overcome, but as different strengths that bring unique value to his community. This representation challenges traditional notions of what makes a hero and demonstrates that leadership can come from understanding, creativity, and empathy rather than physical prowess or adherence to conventional expectations. The film's later developments, including Hiccup's eventual physical disability, are handled with sensitivity and realism that shows how individuals can adapt and continue to contribute meaningfully to their communities regardless of physical limitations. The psychological depth of the human-dragon relationships explores themes of trauma, healing, and trust that resonate with audiences dealing with their own experiences of fear, loss, and recovery. Toothless's initial wariness and defensive behavior reflect realistic responses to trauma and captivity, while his gradual development of trust with Hiccup demonstrates the patience and consistency required to build relationships with those who have been hurt. The film doesn't shy away from showing that building trust takes time and that setbacks are normal and expected parts of the process. This psychological realism adds depth to what could have been simple adventure storytelling and provides valuable lessons about patience, empathy, and the healing power of genuine relationships. The economic and social structures of Berk provide a fascinating backdrop that reflects both historical Viking society and contemporary concerns about resource management and community cooperation. The transition from a dragon hunting economy to a dragon-partnered society requires fundamental changes in how the community allocates resources, defines success, and structures daily life. The film explores how such transitions create both opportunities and challenges, showing characters struggling with changing roles and expectations while also discovering new possibilities they never imagined. The blacksmith shop where Hiccup works becomes a symbol of innovation and adaptation, transforming from a place that creates weapons for dragon fighting to one that develops tools for dragon partnership and care. The film's exploration of generational conflict and change reflects universal themes about young people, challenging established traditions and older generations learning to adapt to new realities. Stoic's journey from rigid adherence to traditional Viking warrior culture to acceptance of his son's different approach represents the kind of generational bridge building that many families experience. The film doesn't present this transition as easy or without pain, showing the genuine struggle that both generations face when fundamental assumptions about life and society are challenged. The resolution emphasizes that both tradition and innovation have value, and that the strongest communities are those that can honor their heritage while adapting to new circumstances and opportunities. The environmental world building of the Isle of Berk creates a believable ecosystem that supports both human and dragon populations while reflecting the harsh beauty of Nordic landscapes. The geography of the island, with its dramatic cliffs, hidden coves, and varied terrain, provides natural explanations for how dragons and Vikings could coexist without completely overlapping in their daily activities. The film's attention to seasonal changes and weather patterns adds realism to the setting, while also creating natural challenges and opportunities that drive plot development. The relationship between the natural environment and both human and dragon communities reflects contemporary ecological thinking about interconnected ecosystems and the importance of biodiversity for community resilience. The film's approach to violence and conflict resolution offers a sophisticated alternative to traditional action movie formulas, emphasizing understanding and communication over force while still acknowledging that some conflicts require decisive action. The dragon raids that open the film are presented as complex situations where both sides have legitimate concerns and fears, rather than simple good versus evil conflicts. The resolution focuses on addressing the underlying causes of conflict rather than simply defeating enemies, demonstrating that sustainable peace requires understanding different perspectives and finding solutions that meet everyone's fundamental needs. This approach to conflict resolution provides valuable lessons for audiences about negotiation, compromise, and the importance of looking beyond surface-level disagreements to understand deeper concerns. The character development of supporting characters adds richness and depth to the community of Berk, showing how social change affects different individuals in different ways. Astra's journey from skeptical warrior to dragon rider reflects the challenges faced by individuals whose identity and self-worth are closely tied to traditional roles and expectations. Fishlegs represents the intellectual curiosity that drives scientific understanding and innovation, while Snotlout embodies the struggle between personal ambition and community loyalty. The twins Roughnut and Toughnut provide comic relief, while also demonstrating that even seemingly chaotic individuals can contribute meaningfully to community efforts when their unique perspectives and skills are properly channeled. The film's production design creates visual metaphors that support the thematic content while also providing spectacular entertainment value. The contrast between the dark, cramped interiors of traditional Viking buildings and the open sky where dragon flight takes place reinforces themes about freedom, possibility, and breaking free from limiting beliefs. The evolution of Berk's architecture throughout the film, incorporating dragon-friendly modifications and new building techniques, visually represents the community's adaptation and growth. The design of dragon equipment, from saddles to feeding tools, reflects both practical considerations and the aesthetic sensibilities of Viking craftsmanship, creating objects that feel both functional and beautiful. The film's exploration of friendship across species boundaries provides powerful metaphors for overcoming prejudice and building understanding across cultural, racial, or other social divisions. The initial fear and mistrust between Vikings and dragons reflects historical and contemporary examples of how different groups can be caught in cycles of retaliation and misunderstanding. The process by which individual relationships between specific humans and dragons gradually transform community attitudes demonstrates how personal connections can challenge and change broader social prejudices. The film emphasizes that such transformations require courage from individuals willing to take risks and challenge existing beliefs, but that the results can benefit entire communities. The technical achievement of creating believable dragon flight sequences required innovations in both practical and digital effects that push the boundaries of what's possible in contemporary filmmaking. The sensation of flight needed to feel both exhilarating and dangerous, capturing the freedom and joy of soaring through the sky while also conveying the skill and trust required to safely navigate at high speeds and altitudes. The camera work combines traditional cinematography techniques with new technologies to create perspectives that feel both realistic and magical, allowing audiences to experience dragon flight from multiple viewpoints, including rider, observer, and dragon perspectives. And the film's musical score builds upon John Powell's established themes from the animated trilogy, while expanding the orchestral arrangements to take full advantage of theatrical sound systems and live instrumental performances. The Dragonflight themes incorporate musical elements that suggest both the power and grace of these creatures, while the character themes reflect individual personalities and relationship. The integration of traditional Nordic musical elements with contemporary orchestral techniques creates a soundscape that feels both historically grounded and cinematically modern, supporting the film's blend of authentic cultural elements with fantastical adventure storytelling. Set on the rugged Isle of Berk, where Vikings and dragons have been enemies for generations, the story follows Hiccup, Horrendous Haddock III, a 16-year-old inventive but overlooked Viking played by Mason Thames. Hiccup, the son of Chieftain Stoic the Vast, portrayed by Gerard Butler reprising his role from the animated films, defies tradition by befriending a night fury dragon named Toothless. Their bond challenges Viking society's deep-seated fear of dragons, revealing their true nature as misunderstood creatures. The film, released on June 13, 2025, grossed over $627 million worldwide, becoming the fifth highest grossing film of the year and the highest grossing in the franchise. It premiered at CinemaCon on April 2, 2025, and received generally positive reviews for its emotional resonance and visual spectacle, though some critics noted its near shot-for-shot adherence to the original limited its innovation. The narrative begins with Hiccup narrating the plight of Burke, constantly under siege by dragons stealing livestock and endangering villagers. Determined to prove himself despite his physical frailty, Hiccup invents a bolus launcher and shoots down a night fury during a raid, though no one believes him. Venturing into the forest to find the dragon, he discovers toothless, injured, and unable to fly. Instead of killing it, Hiccup frees the dragon, sparking an unlikely friendship that forms the heart of the story. This decision sets Hiccup on a path to challenge the Viking tradition of dragon slaying, as he learns Toothless is not a monster, but a loyal companion. The film's emotional core lies in Hiccup's journey from an outcast to a hero who bridges two warring species, a theme that resonates with audiences through its universal message of empathy and understand. The live-action format amplifies the visceral intensity of dragon battles, with CGI dragons crafted by Framestore's visual effects team appearing strikingly realistic, particularly Toothless, who retains his cat-like charm from the animated version. John Powell's score, reprised from the original trilogy, elevates key scenes like the sand drawing, flight training, and the climactic battle against the Red Death, a massive dragon threatening both Vikings and dragons. These moments, praised for their breathtaking visuals and emotional weight, make the film a standout adaptation, though some argue the added realism sacrifices a touch of the original's whimsical charm. Production of the 2025 remake began in February 2023, with De Blois returning to ensure fidelity to the original while enriching character dynamics. Filming, primarily in Belfast, Northern Ireland, was delayed by the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes, starting in June 2023 and wrapping in May 2024. The cast includes Neko Parker as Astrid, a fierce and ambitious Viking who evolves from Hiccup's rival to his ally and romantic interest, and Nick Frost as Gobber, the quirky blacksmith. The narrative's fidelity ensures it retains the original's message. Differences can be strengths, and understanding can bridge divides, making it a heartwarming adventure for both new viewers and fans of the 2010 film. The film's placed within the broader How to Train Your Dragon franchise, which includes 3 animated films, 6 short films, and 3 TV series totaling 223 episodes, underscores its significance. Based loosely on Cressida Cowell's 2003 novel, the franchise has expanded into a cultural phenomenon, with the 2025 remake marking the first live-action adaptation of a DreamWorks animation film. A sequel, based on How to Train Your Dragon 2, is set for June 11, 2027, signaling Universal's confidence in the remake's success. The story's depth, exploring Hiccup's growth from an awkward teen to a leader, resonates across media, with the live-action film adding nuance to characters like Astrid and Snotlout. While some fans lament the lack of adaptation of Cowell's 12-book series, which offers richer material for an epic narrative, the film prioritizes nostalgia over reinvention. Its technical achievements, from CGI dragons to practical effects, showcase advancements in filmmaking, yet its reliance on the original's framework sparked discussions about the value of live-action remakes. For Universal, the film aligns with strategic goals, including boosting the franchise's visibility alongside the Universal Epic Universe theme park, featuring attractions like Hiccup's Wing Gliders and Dragon Racers Rally. Ultimately, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 succeeds as a faithful, emotionally engaging adaptation that soars through its visuals and heart, even if it doesn't fully escape the shadow of its animated predecessor. Its legacy lies in its ability to rekindle the magic of Burke for a new generation, while honoring the original's enduring appeal. The 2025 live-action How to Train Your Dragon delves deeply into Hiccup's character arc, portraying him as a misunderstood teenager whose ingenuity and empathy redefine heroism. Mason Thames, only 17 during filming, brings a raw vulnerability to Hiccup, capturing his struggle to earn respect in a Viking culture that values brute strength. Unlike the animated version, where Hiccup's wit is often played for humor, the live-action film emphasizes his emotional isolation, particularly in scenes where Stoic, played by Gerard Butler, dismisses his inventions. A poignant moment occurs early when Hiccup, tinkering in Gobber's forge, overhears villagers mocking him, their taunts echoing his own self-doubt. This sets up his decision to spare Toothless as not just a plot device, but a rebellion against a society that undervalues him. The film's pacing allows for quieter moments like Hiccup sketching Toothless in the forest, where Tim's subtle expressions convey awe and curiosity. These scenes ground the fantastical elements, making Hiccup's bond with Toothless feel authentic. The live-action format amplifies the stakes of his defiance as the physicality of the Viking world, grimy armor, weathered ships, and fire-scorched villages feels more tangible than in animation. Critics noted this realism occasionally overshadows the story's whimsy, but it strengthens Hiccup's journey, as his courage to challenge tradition feels riskier. The film also adds depth to Hiccup's relationship with Stoic, with a new scene where Stoic gifts him a helmet made from his late mother's armor, symbolizing both burden and love. This moment, absent from the 2010 film, underscores Hiccup's desire to honor his family while forging his own path, making his eventual leadership in uniting Vikings and dragons more emotionally resonant. Astrid, portrayed by Nico Parker, emerges as a more complex figure in the 2025 remake, her ambition to become a leader adding layers to her role. In the animated film, Astrid is a confident warrior whose arc revolves around accepting Hiccup's perspective. Here, Parker infuses her with a backstory of striving to prove herself in a patriarchal Viking society, driven by her family's lower status. A new scene shows Astrid training alone at dawn, her determination palpable as she hones her axe-throwing skills. This context makes her initial rivalry with Hiccup more intense as she sees his unconventional methods as a threat to her goal. Their evolving relationship, marked by a tense sparring match that transitions into mutual respect, feels more organic than in the original, with Parker and Thames sharing a chemistry that balances rivalry and romance. The live-action format highlights Astrid's physicality, with stunt coordinators ensuring her fight scenes are dynamic yet believable. Her dragon, Stormfly, a deadly nadir, is rendered with stunning detail, its vibrant blue scales and expressive movements courtesy of Framestore's VFX team. Astrid's arc culminates in her leading the young Vikings in the final battle, a moment that showcases her growth from a lone competitor to a team player. Fans on X praised Parker's performance, with posts highlighting how her Astrid feels like a natural evolution, though some felt the film underutilized her in favor of Hiccup's story. The added depth to Astrid's character aligns with the film's theme of challenging societal norms, as she, like Hiccup, defies expectations to carve her own path. Toothless, the Night Fury, remains the emotional heart of the 2025 film, with visual effects elevating his presence to near-tangible realism. Framestore, known for Guardians of the Galaxy, spent over a year designing Toothless, blending feline grace with reptilian power. His obsidian scales shimmer under Burke's overcast skies, and his expressive green eyes convey a range of emotions, from fear to loyalty. A key innovation was using puppeteers on set to guide actors' interactions, ensuring natural reactions to Toothless movements. A standout scene is the forbidden friendship sequence, where Hiccup and Toothless bond over a sand drawing, enhanced by practical effects like wind machines simulating dragon gusts. The live-action format makes Toothless' injury, his damaged tail fin, more visceral, with close-ups showing torn scales and raw wounds, amplifying the stakes of Hiccup's decision to help him. The flight scenes, filmed using 8-axis gimbals, capture the exhilaration of soaring through clouds, with teams strapped into rigs to mimic Toothless' erratic movements. John Powell's soaring score, reprised from the original, elevates these moments, though some critics noted the live-action flights lack the animated film's fluid artistry. Fan reactions on Reddit were overwhelmingly positive, with users calling Toothless the most lovable CGI creature since Groot. The film also introduces subtle lore additions, like Toothless reacting to dandelions, which cause him to sneeze, adding a playful touch to his character. These details reinforce Toothless' role as a bridge between humans and dragons, his trust in Hiccup symbolizing the possibility of peace. The Red Death, the film's climactic antagonist, is a visual and narrative triumph, its scale amplified in live action. Described as a mountain of scales and malice, the Red Death is a colossal dragon controlling Burke's dragon raids through a hive mind-like influence. Framestore's design draws from volcanic imagery, with molten cracks glowing across its hide, making it a terrifying presence. The final battle, where Hiccup and Toothless lead the young Vikings against it, uses sweeping aerial shots and practical fire effects to create a visceral spectacle. Unlike the animated film, where the Red Death's defeat feels swift, the 2025 version extends the sequence, showing Hiccup's strategic planning as he uses Toothless plasma blasts to target weak points. This change emphasizes Hiccup's growth as a tactician, though some fans on X felt it slowed the pacing. The live-action format heightens the battle stakes, with real-time destruction of Burke's structures adding urgency. The Red Death's defeat, triggered by Toothless' precise strike, is a crowd-pleaser, with audiences at CinemaCon 2025 cheering its explosive climax. The creature's role as a metaphor for blind tradition, forcing dragons to raid out of fear, ties into the film's themes, though some critics argued its expanded screen time overshadowed smaller character moments. The technical achievement of rendering such a massive creature with over 10,000 animatable scales underscores the film's $180 million budget, a significant jump from the animated trilogy's cost. Stoic the Vast, portrayed by Gerard Butler, anchors the film with a commanding yet nuanced performance, his return bridging the animated and live-action worlds. Butler, who also voiced Stoic in the original trilogy, brings a weathered gravitas, his Scottish accent grounding the Viking chief in authenticity. The live-action format highlights Stoic's physicality, with scenes of him wielding a massive warhammer during dragon raids, showcasing his warrior prowess. Yet, the film delves deeper into his emotional conflict as a father struggling to connect with Hiccup. A new scene, where Stoic reflects on his late wife Valka's belief in peace, adds depth to his eventual acceptance of Hiccup's bond with Toothless. This moment, set against a stormy cliffside, uses practical rain effects to amplify the mood. Butler's chemistry with Timms as a highlight, their arguments crackling with tension, particularly when Stoic banishes Hiccup for sparing Toothless. Fans on X lauded Butler's performance, with posts noting how his real-life fatherhood informed his portrayal. However, some critics felt Stoic's arc, while heartfelt, retreads familiar ground from the 2010 film. The live-action format makes his transformation more visceral, as his decision to trust Hiccup during the Red Death battle feels like a hard-won victory. Stoic's role as a symbol of traditional Viking values, softened by love for his son, reinforces the film's message of evolving beyond outdated norms. Gobber, played by Nick Frost, injects humor and warmth into the 2025 film, his quirky blacksmith serving as Hiccup's mentor and comic relief. Frost, known for Shaun of the Dead, brings a mischievous energy, his ad-libs adding levity to scenes like the dragon training arena, where he teaches young Vikings with exaggerated bravado. The live-action format enhances Gobber's physical comedy, with practical effects like prosthetic limbs and clanging tools making his workshop scenes lively. A new moment shows Gobber secretly supporting Hiccup's inventions, hinting at his own outsider status in Burke's rigid culture. frigid culture. This adds depth to his role, though some fans on Reddit felt his screen time was reduced to accommodate Astrid's expanded arc. Frost's chemistry with Butler is a standout, their banter during a village meeting evoking the original's camaraderie. The film also gives Gobber a brief action sequence wielding a makeshift weapon against a dragon, which showcases his resourcefulness. While his role is secondary, Gobber's humor balances the film's grittier tone, though some critics noted his slapstick feels less natural in live action. His loyalty to Hiccup, especially when defending him to Stoic, underscores the theme of found family, making Gobber a fan favorite despite limited screen time. The film's production faced unique challenges, with the 2023 strikes delaying filming and pushing the budget to $180 million. Shot primarily in Belfast, Northern Ireland, the production used rugged coastal locations to bring Burke to life with practical sets like the Great Hall built at Titanic Studios. The visual effects team, led by Framestore, collaborated with puppeteers to create realistic dragon interactions, a process detailed in the Blu-ray featurettes. The use of 8-axis gimbals for flight scenes required actors to undergo physical training, with Thames and Parker spending weeks mastering dragon riding choreography. Director Dean DeBlois, who insisted on minimal deviations from the original, faced criticism for playing it safe, though he argued the story's emotional core demanded fidelity. The strikes forced reshoots in early 2024, with some scenes like Hiccup's first flight refined to enhance emotional impact. The film's marketing, including a Super Bowl lick spot, leaned heavily on nostalgia, featuring Powell's iconic score and Toothless, playful antics. Universal's tie-ins with the How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk theme park, opened May 2025, boosted its visibility, with attractions like Hiccup's wing gliders drawing fans. The film's digital release on Peacock and subsequent streaming on Prime Video ensured wide accessibility, contributing to its $627 million global box office. Fan reactions to the 2025 remake, gathered from X and Reddit, reveal a polarized yet passionate response. Many praised the film's visuals and performances, with Thames and Parker earning acclaim for their chemistry. Posts on X highlighted the sand-drawing scene as a tearjerker, with Toothless CGI earning near-universal praise. However, some fans criticized the remake's necessity, arguing it added little to the 2010 classic. Reddit threads debated the live-action format, with users noting the grittier tone clashed with the story's whimsy, particularly in comedic moments like Gobber's antics. So, the film's fidelity to the original was both a strength and weakness, as it satisfied nostalgic fans but disappointed those expecting bold changes. The added mythology, like Gothai's bone-reading ritual, sparked interest, though some felt it underdeveloped the book series' lore. Universal's push for franchise synergy, including the theme park, fueled accusations of a cash grab motives, yet the film's box office success, $84.06 million opening weekend, proved its appeal. Younger audiences new to the story embraced it, with parents on X noting their kids' love for Toothless. The film's PG rating, with intense battles and mild gross-out humor, remained family-friendly, balancing spectacle with heart. Thematically, the 2025 film emphasizes empathy and challenging prejudice, with Hiccup's bond with Toothless symbolizing hope for reconciliation. The live-action format makes Burke's harsh environment, stormy seas, rugged cliffs, more immersive, grounding the story's fantastical elements. New scenes like Hiccup using dandelions to calm dragons add whimsy, though some critics felt these clashed with the grittier tone. The film's exploration of Hiccup's outsider status resonates universally, with Tim's performance highlighting his quiet resilience. Astrid's ambition and Stoic's struggle as a father deepen the narrative, though some argue the ensemble cast, like Snotlout and the twins, is underused. The Red Death battle serves as a metaphor for breaking cycles of violence, with Hiccup's strategy showing intellect over brute force. The film's message that understanding can heal divides feels timely, though some ex-posts noted its simplicity compared to the book series' complexity. The live-action format amplifies emotional stakes, particularly in Hiccup's injury during the climax, where practical effects make his sacrifice more visceral. The film's success sets up the 2027 sequel, promising to explore Hiccup's growth as a leader. The How to Train Your Dragon franchise's evolution from Cressida Cowell's books to a global phenomenon underscores the 2025 film's significance. While the books offer a darker, more episodic narrative, the films streamline the story for emotional impact. The live-action remake, as the first of its kind for DreamWorks Animation, tests the viability of adapting animated classics, with Universal banking on nostalgia and new audiences. The film's tie-ins, from theme park rides to Burger King toys, reflect its commercial ambition, though some fans on Reddit criticize this as diluting the story's purity. The technical achievements, from Framestore's CGI to Powell's score, set a high bar for future remakes, with the 2027 sequel already in development. The film's legacy lies in its ability to reintroduce Hiccup and Toothless to a new generation, balancing fidelity with subtle innovation. While not revolutionary, it captures the heart of the original, proving the story's timeless appeal. Its box office triumph and fan engagement ensure the franchise's continued relevance, with Burke's skies soaring into the future. The 2025 live-action How to Train Your Dragon leverages its visual effects to create a breathtaking rendition of Berk, transforming the animated world into a tangible, rugged landscape. Filmed on Northern Ireland's stormy coasts, the production team built sprawling sets, including a 1/1 replica of Berk's Great Hall, to immerse viewers in a Viking settlement battered by dragon raids. Cinematographer Bill Pope, known for The Matrix, used natural lighting to capture the overcast skies and misty cliffs, giving the film a gritty realism absent in the animated original. The dragons, crafted by Framestore, blend CGI with practical effects, such as puppeteers guiding actors' eye lines during toothless scenes. A standout sequence is Hiccup's first flight with Toothless, where 8-axis gimbals simulate the dragon's erratic maneuvers, with Mason Team's fame strapped into a rig for authenticity. The visual effects team spent months perfecting Toothless plasma blasts, using fluid simulations to mimic glowing energy bursts. Fan reactions on X praised the realism, with posts comparing Toothless scales to a living obsidian statue. However, some critics argued the hyper-realistic dragons lost the animated film's stylized charm, particularly in comedic moments like Toothless' sneezing fit triggered by dandelions. The film's $180 million budget reflects the technical ambition, with over 1,500 VFX shots surpassing the original trilogy's combined total. This commitment to spectacle ensures Burke feels alive, though some Reddit users felt the gritty aesthetic occasionally overshadowed the story's warmth. Hiccup's character in the 2025 film evolves through subtle additions that deepen his outsider status. Mason Thames portrays him as a tinkerer whose inventions, like the Bolas launcher, are both his strength and source of ridicule. A new scene shows Hiccup sketching mechanical designs in a hidden journal, hinting at his mother Valka's influence, a detail drawn from the book series, but absent in the animated film. This moment set in Gabber's Forge uses practical props like clanging tools to ground Hiccup's creativity in a tactile world. His bond with Toothless is the emotional core, amplified by close-up shots of Thames' expressive eyes as he frees the injured dragon. The live-action format makes Hiccup's physical frailty more apparent, with Thames' slight frame contrasting Butler's towering stoic. A poignant exchange where Stoic calls Hiccup a disappointment hits harder in live action, with Butler's stern delivery and Thames' hurt reaction. Fans on Reddit lauded this dynamic, though some felt the film leaned too heavily on Hiccup's angst, sidelining his wit. The narrative emphasizes his growth from outcast to leader, particularly in the Red Death battle, where his strategic use of Toothless speed showcases intellect over brawn. This arc resonates with audiences, with X posts calling Hiccup a hero for the underdogs, cementing his universal appeal. Astrid's expanded role in the 2025 remake adds a feminist layer to the story, with Nico Parker portraying her as a warrior driven by ambition and vulnerability. Unlike the animated Astrid, who is confident but one-dimensional, Parker's version grapples with her family's lower status in Burke's hierarchy. A new scene shows her visiting her mother, a weaver, who urges her to aim higher than their station, setting up Astrid's drive to become chief. Her initial disdain for Hiccup stems from seeing his unorthodox methods as a threat, depicted in a tense sparring match where Parker's athleticism shines. The live-action format enhances her action scenes, with stunt coordinators crafting dynamic axe-throwing sequences. Astrid's bond with Stormfly, her deadly nadir, is a visual highlight, with the dragon's vibrant scales contrasting Burke's muted palette. Her arc peaks when she rallies the young Vikings against the Red Death, a moment that showcases her leadership. X post praised Parker's chemistry with Thames, particularly in a quiet scene where Astrid admits her fear of failure. Some critics, however, felt her expanded backstory overshadowed other characters like Fishlegs. Astrid's journey, paralleling Hiccup's, reinforces the film's theme of defying expectations, making her a standout in the remake. Toothless' design in the 2025 film is a technical marvel, blending realism with the animated original's charm. Framestore's team studied big cats and bats to craft his movements, ensuring every flick of his tail or tilt of his head feels organic. His green eyes, rendered with advanced light scattering techniques, convey a soulful depth, especially in the sand drawing scene where he mimics Hiccup's sketch. Practical effects like puppeteers manipulating a lightweight frame on set allowed Thames to interact naturally, enhancing their bond's authenticity. The live-action format makes Toothless' injuries more visceral, with close-ups of his torn tail fin evoking empathy. His playful moments, like sneezing from dandelions, add levity, though some fans on Reddit felt these clashed with the grittier tone. The flight scenes, using gimbals and wind machines, capture the exhilaration of soaring, with John Powell's score amplifying the emotional highs. X users called Toothless the real star, with his expressive animations stealing scenes. The film's subtle lore additions, like Toothless' reaction to dandelions, hint at untapped dragon biology, though some critics wished for deeper exploration of Night Fury origins. Toothless remains the film's emotional anchor, his loyalty to Hiccup driving the narrative's heart. The Red Death, the climactic villain, is a towering presence in the 2025 film, its design amplifying the animated version's menace. Framestore crafted a creature resembling a volcanic behemoth, with glowing cracks across its scales and a wingspan dwarfing Burke's cliffs. The final battle, extended from the original, uses sweeping drone shots and practical fire effects to create a chaotic spectacle. Hiccup's strategy, leveraging toothless agility to outmaneuver the beast, feels more tactical, with Tiem's dialogue emphasizing his quick thinking. The live-action format heightens the destruction, with collapsing structures and roaring flames adding stakes. Some X-posts praise the battle scale, comparing it to Game of Thrones dragon sequences, while others felt its length disrupted pacing. The Red Death's role as a metaphor for oppressive control, forcing dragons to raid, ties into the film's themes, though its limited screen time before the climax left some wanting more backstory. The technical effort with over 2,000 animatable elements reflects the film's ambition, contributing to its $627 million box office. The battle's resolution, with toothless precise plasma blast, remains a crowd pleaser, cementing the film's action credentials. Stoic's portrayal by Gerard Butler in the 2025 remake adds emotional weight, his performance blending authority with vulnerability. The live-action format showcases his physicality, with scenes of him leading raids in heavy armor, shot on rugged sets. A new scene, where Stoic reflects on Valka's peace-loving nature by a firelit hearth, deepens his arc, showing his internal conflict over Hiccup's defiance. Butler's chemistry with Thames is electric, their arguments carrying a raw intensity, especially when Stoic banishes Hiccup. Fans on X praised Butler's gravitas, though some felt his softer moments echoed the animated film too closely. The practical effects, like rain-soaked confrontations, enhance his scenes' realism. Stoic's transformation, trusting Hiccup during the Red Death battle, feels earned, with Butler's subtle shift from sternness to pride resonating. The film's exploration of his fatherly struggles aligns with its themes, though some critics noted his arc lacks the novelty of Astrid's. Stoic's role as Burke's anchor grounds the story, his acceptance of dragons marking a cultural shift. Gobber, played by Nick Frost, brings humor and heart to the 2025 film, his blacksmith role expanded with quirky details. Frost's ad-libs, like joking about his prosthetic leg, add levity to tense scenes, with practical props enhancing the comedy. A new moment shows Gobber mentoring Hiccup in secret, hinting at his own history as an outsider. The live-action format makes his workshop a tactile space, with clanging metal and sparks creating a lived-in feel. Frost's chemistry with Butler shines in banter-filled scenes, evoking the original's warmth. However, some Reddit users felt Gobber's reduced screen time limited his impact compared to Astrid or Stoic. His action sequence fighting a dragon with a makeshift weapon showcases his resourcefulness, though critics noted the slapstick felt forced in live action. Gobber's loyalty to Hiccup reinforces the theme of found family, making him a beloved figure despite limited focus. The film's production faced hurdles with the 2023 strikes, delaying filming in Belfast. The team built massive sets like Burke's Harbor, using local stone to match the rugged aesthetic. Framestore's VFX, combined with puppeteers, created seamless dragon interactions, detailed in Blu-ray extras. The gimbals for flight scenes required intense actor training, with Thames mastering complex choreography. Dean DeBlois' direction prioritized fidelity, though some ex-posts criticized the lack of bold changes. The marketing, including a Super Bowl Licks trailer, leaned on nostalgia, boosting anticipation. Tie-ins with Universal's Isle of Berk theme park, opened May 2025, amplified the film's reach, with rides like Dragon Racers rally drawing crowds. The streaming strategy via Peacock and Prime Video ensured accessibility, contributing to its $262.06 million US box office. Fan reactions on X and Reddit highlight the 2025 film's divisive reception. Tim's and Parker's performances earned praise, with Toothless CGI lauded as a next level. However, some fans called it a redundant remake, arguing the animated film's charm was unmatched. The gritty tone sparked debate, with Reddit threads noting it clashed with comedic moments. The added lore like Gothi's rituals intrigued book fans, though many wished for deeper ties to Cowell's series. The film's success, with an $84.6 million opening, silenced some doubters, appealing to new audiences. Its PG rating balanced intensity with family-friendly appeal, with parents on X noting kids' love for the dragons. Thematically, the film explores empathy and progress, with Hiccup's bond with Toothless challenging prejudice. The live-action format makes Burke's harshness vivid, grounding the fantasy. New elements like dandelions affecting dragons add whimsy, though some felt they disrupted the tone. Hiccup's arc resonates, with Thames' portrayal highlighting his resilience. The ensemble, like Snotlout, feels underused, with critics noting missed opportunities for depth. The Red Death battle symbolizes breaking cycles, with Hiccup's intellect shining. So, the film's message about understanding and unity feels timeless, though some ex-post found it simplistic compared to the books. Its success paves the way for the 2027 sequel, promising new adventures. The franchise's evolution from Cowell's books to a global brand frames the 2025 film's role. The book's darker tone contrasts with the film's optimism, with the remake leaning on nostalgia. As DreamWorks' first live-action remake, it tests the format's viability, with Universal banking on theme park synergy. The technical achievements, from CGI to Powell's score, set a high bar, though some fans criticized the commercial motives. The film's legacy lies in reintroducing Burke to new viewers, balancing fidelity with fresh details, ensuring its place in the franchise's soaring saga. The 2025 live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon represents one of the boldest attempts in recent cinema to translate a beloved animated epic into a new medium. And the way the movie balances the charm of the original trilogy with the realism of live-action storytelling is at the very core of its brilliance. At the heart of the story lies Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III, the boy who always seemed out of place in the Viking world of Burke and Toothless, the Night Fury who is both a symbol of misunderstood danger and pure companionship. The film immediately anchors itself in this relationship, but the live-action format magnifies subtle aspects that animation could only gesture toward. For example, in the opening sequence, the rugged textures of Burke's cliffs and the crashing of waves against its jagged shoreline create a physical weight to the environment that draws the audience into a world that feels less like myth and more like history. The dragons themselves, rendered with cutting-edge visual effects, are not simply cartoonishly expressive animals anymore. They exist with physical detail down to each scale, each flicker of a nostril, and the damp shimmer of wings in the northern mist. When Hiccup first attempts to aim at the Night Fury with his bola-launching contraption, there is a tension that resonates differently in live action, because the stakes of hurting such a majestic beast feel both morally heavier and visually more real. The camera lingers not just on Hiccup's nervous hands, but also on the darting eyes of villagers who expect him to either prove his worth or reinforce their image of him as a failure. This deeper social context is more visible in the live-action version. The villagers' rough-hewn faces, the way soot clings to their beards, and the hardened calluses of their hands all speak to a life of survival and brutality. One in which dragons are not just nuisances, but existential threats. Thus, when Hiccup makes the fateful decision not to kill Toothless after trapping him, the moral courage of the act feels like an immense defiance of everything his world has demanded of him. The scene in the glade, where Hiccup releases Toothless, gains new intensity in live action because the fear of standing so close to a beast whose jaw could crush a man in an instant is palpable. Toothless's eyes, now not simply wide animated orbs, but deeply reflective orbs that capture light and shadow, register confusion, intelligence, and even the first glimmer of recognition. It is in this quiet, prolonged moment, Hiccup holding a knife he chooses not to use, Toothless flexing his wings as if testing the possibility of freedom, that the foundation of their legendary bond is forged, and the film's deeper thematic question is articulated. can empathy undo centuries of hatred? All what the 2025 film accomplishes with remarkable subtlety is the expansion of emotional subtext in every interaction between Hiccup and Toothless, and this is particularly evident in the training sequences that follow. In the animated version, these moments were heartwarming montages accompanied by playful music, but in live action, they become prolonged meditations on trust, fear, and curiosity. For example, when Hiccup first tries to offer fish to Toothless, the detail of the dragon's nostrils flaring, the slight hesitation before taking the food, and the heavy sound of chewing become sensory experiences for the audience. The camera often shifts to Hiccup's perspective, showing not just Toothless's reactions, but the trembling of his own hands, the shallow breath that betrays his fear, and the flickers of awe in his eyes. Each attempt at communication between boy and dragon carries immense weight, not least because of the cultural backdrop. Burke's society has institutionalized dragon killing as the ultimate proof of strength, and the mere act of feeding a dragon instead of slaying it is an almost revolutionary act. Live action allows these contradictions to play out in the background too. We see stoic Hiccup's father leading men in reinforcing dragon traps, sharpening weapons, and preparing for raids, while Hiccup secretly retreats into the forest to pursue his forbidden bond. This contrast is heightened visually through lighting. The forge glows with harsh orange and red flames, while the secluded cove where Hiccup and Toothless interact is drenched in cool greens and filtered sunlight. The world of violence and tradition is fire and iron, but the world of empathy and discovery is water and foliage. When Hiccup finally dares to place his hand on Toothless's snout, the live-action rendering of the dragon's skin texture, a leathery yet strangely smooth surface that shifts under the light, makes the contact breathtakingly tactile. The audience feels the danger and the triumph simultaneously because the gesture is no longer simply symbolic. It is vividly physical. Every fiber of the narrative insists that this is the moment when centuries of enmity collapse into something new. Even Toothless's slow, uncertain acceptance, eyes half closing, body relaxing, feels monumental, as though the creature itself is weighing the risk of this trust. By extending these interactions, the movie emphasizes that peace is not achieved in an instant, but painstakingly built through dozens of small, vulnerable choices. Each scene becomes a metaphor for the courage required to dismantle inherited hatred, and this message resonates profoundly in the live-action medium, where realism magnifies consequence. Another profound layer the live-action version brings out is the complexity of Stoic, the vast, Hiccup's father. In the original trilogy, Stoic was already a figure of immense gravitas and emotional depth, but here his presence dominates the screen with a mixture of awe and tragedy. Portrayed with stern authority, Stoic's body language and facial expressions are given new gravity through live-action acting. His every gesture, the tightening of his jaw, the weary lowering of his shoulders after a failed raid, the longing glance toward the horizon, becomes a testament to a man caught between love for his son and duty to his people. The film invests time in exploring the contradictions of Stoic's character. He is both a leader and a father, and the weight of both roles often crushes him. In the early scenes, we watch him rally his warriors for another fight against dragons. And while his words thunder with confidence, the camera lingers on his eyes, betraying fear and exhaustion. He knows the war against dragons is endless, yet he cannot imagine another path. This is why his relationship with Hiccup is so strained. Hiccup's refusal to conform to the Viking mold feels like an insult to the sacrifices Stoic has made, but at the same time, it terrifies him because it threatens the foundation of their society. The live-action context also allows for a richer portrayal of Stoic's grief over his late wife, Valka, whose absence casts a long shadow. The film subtly foreshadows her later reappearance, for those who know the animated sequels, through references to Hiccup's inherited curiosity and gentleness, qualities Stoic sometimes perceives as weaknesses. In the new format, this tension is amplified by quieter, more intimate moments. Stoic sitting alone in his hall, drinking silently by firelight, his hand hovering over a carved wooden figure of Valka before pulling away. His hesitation before scolding Hiccup as if torn between discipline and tenderness. These details make Stoic less of a towering archetype and more of a flawed, deeply human man. The eventual clash between his worldview and Hiccup's vision for peace thus feels inevitable, but not in a simplistic a father versus son trope. It becomes a clash between two different ways of surviving grief and fear. Stoic clings to war because he believes it is the only way to protect those he loves. Hiccup dares to dream of trust because he believes it is the only way to escape endless loss. The live-action adaptation forces us to feel the stakes of this conflict with raw immediacy, and every interaction between father and son becomes charged with both love and pain. One of the most transformative aspects of the live-action adaptation is how it treats the village of Burke itself, not merely as a backdrop, but as a breathing, lived-in world that influences the character's psychology. In the animated films, Burke was colorful and stylized, with a whimsical charm despite its harsh northern climate. In live action, however, the island becomes rawer, harsher, and more tactile. The Viking huts are constructed of timber worn by salt and wind, smoke constantly wafts from chimneys, and the air feels perpetually damp with mist and sea spray. The sound design reinforces this. The creaking of wooden docks, the thud of waves against rocks, and the constant howling of winds remind us that Burke's people are in perpetual battle not only with dragons but with the environment itself. This realism adds weight to the villagers' hostility toward dragons. When survival is already so fragile, the presence of fire-breathing beasts becomes all the more intolerable. Yet, amidst this atmosphere of survivalist grimness, small details humanize Burke's inhabitants. Children are seen playing in the mud, elders huddle near fires telling stories of old dragon battles, and artisans work tirelessly on weapons and boats. By layering these everyday moments, the film suggests that Burke is not simply a land of warriors, but a community with fears, hopes, and traditions. This contextual grounding makes Hiccup's divergence all the more radical. He is not merely going against his father, he is defying centuries of culture forged in hardship. The tension is not abstract, it is encoded in every structure, every scarred villager, every funeral pyre, after a dragon raid. When Hiccup sneaks away to see Toothless, the very geography of Burke, its cliffs, forests, and hidden coves, becomes complicit in his rebellion. The cove where he trains Toothless is lush and almost sacred, bathed in softer light, hidden from the village's prying eye. This space feels like an alternate reality where another kind of life is possible. The duality of Burke's landscapes thus mirrors the duality within Hiccup, torn between belonging and transformation, between loyalty to his people and loyalty to his newfound friend. The live-action environment in this way becomes a character itself, shaping the drama and magnifying the stakes of every choice. Astrid Hofferson, Hiccup's eventual companion and rival, receives one of the most nuanced reimaginings in this live-action adaptation. In animation, she was portrayed as the archetypal strong Viking warrior with flashes of tenderness beneath her hardened exterior. In live action, however, her characterization deepens, presenting her as not merely a foil to Hiccup, but as a fully realized figure, grappling with her own cultural conditioning. Oh, Astrid's determination to be the best dragon slayer is no longer simply about pride. It is about survival legacy and the weight of familial expectation. Early scenes show her training rigorously, bruises on her arms, calluses on her hands, and a sharp focus in her eyes that speaks to years of preparation. Her rivalry with Hiccup is layered. On the surface, she mocks him for his clumsiness and apparent weakness, but the film allows subtle moments where her contempt flickers into curiosity, even envy, at his unconventional ways. One of the most powerful sequences is when she secretly follows Hiccup into the forest and witnesses his interaction with Toothless. Instead of the quick discovery scene in the animated version, the live action stretches this into a prolonged observation. Astrid hides among the trees, watching Hiccup feed the dragon, sketch in his notebook, and attempt flight trials with improvised saddles. The camera alternates between her astonishment and her inner conflict, Does she expose him and secure her standing in Burke, or does she allow herself to consider the possibility that he is right? This tension humanizes Astrid far beyond her original role. By the time she confronts Hiccup directly, her anger feels like a shield for her confusion, and her eventual decision to join his cause is portrayed as a painful yet liberating step away from everything she has been taught. Her relationship with Hiccup thus becomes not a one-sided romance, but a genuine partnership, born from shared courage and challenging an entire worldview. Live-action acting grants Astrid emotional depth through subtle expressions, the tightening of lips, the softening of her gaze, the conflicted tone in her voice that elevate her from secondary character to central co-architect of change. The dragon training arena, where young Vikings are drilled to fight dragons, is one of the film's most visceral set pieces, and its live-action presentation adds layers of brutality and danger absent in the animated version. Constructed from iron bars, wooden gates, and scorched stone, the arena is less a school and more a gladiatorial pit, a place where children are forced to confront lethal beasts as a rite of passage. The realism of the live-action effects makes every training session feel genuinely perilous. Like when Hiccup faces dragons in the ring, his fear is palpable. The snapping of teeth inches from his face, the scorching heat of fire singeing his hair, the reverberating roar that shakes the ground. Unlike his peers who attempt brute force, Hiccup employs unorthodox tactics, dropping his shield, avoiding aggression, and studying the dragon's behaviors. The film emphasizes these contrasts more starkly than the animation, using long takes to show the confusion of the crowd as Hiccup calms creatures rather than provokes them. The reactions of Gobber, the blacksmith and trainer, are particularly crucial here. Played with gruff warmth, Gobber oscillates between frustration and bemusement, gradually realizing that Hiccup's methods might contain wisdom. The arena scenes also provide narrative mirrors. While Hiccup secretly tames Toothless in the forest, he publicly demonstrates those same lessons with other dragons, inadvertently exposing his secret philosophy to the entire village. His peers' confusion eventually turns into suspicion, setting the stage for conflict. In this way, the arena is not just about spectacle, but about ideological confrontation. Every dragon Hiccup refuses to harm. Every moment he chooses observation over violence becomes a small rebellion witnessed by his people. The live-action setting, with its grit, sweat, and danger, ensures that these choices feel not like harmless quirks, but radical acts of defiance in a world built on bloodshed. Toothless himself is perhaps the most impressive achievement of the film's visual effects and storytelling, and in live action he transcends the role of a mere fantastical creature to become a fully realized character. The design maintains the iconic silhouette, sleek black body, cat-like eyes, retractable teeth, but adds layers of texture and realism. His wings ripple with fine veins, his scales glisten with moisture after flight, and his breathing is heavy and resonant like that of a large predator. Yet, what makes Toothless extraordinary in this adaptation is the depth of emotion captured in his face and movements. Subtle twitches of his ears, the shift of pupils, and the rhythm of his tail all communicate thought and feeling. His relationship with Hiccup unfolds through nonverbal dialogue, and the film lingers on these exchanges to emphasize their mutual discovery. One extended sequence shows Hiccup sketching Toothless's damaged tail fin, testing prosthetic designs, and failing repeatedly. Each failure is met not with slapstick comedy, but with tangible frustration. Hiccup slumps in exhaustion, while Toothless growls in impatience, even flaring his wings in annoyance. When the design finally works and they achieve their first true flight, the scene is breathtaking. Live-action cinematography captures the sensation of soaring through clouds, with the camera weaving between dragon wings and revealing sweeping vistas of sea and sky. Hiccup's laughter and awe blend with Toothless's triumphant roars, creating a visceral moment of liberation. This flight sequence becomes more than spectacle. It is a metaphor for partnership, for the idea that freedom requires trust and cooperation. The sheer physicality of Toothless makes the risk of flight tangible, Every gust of wind, every precarious turn reminds the audience that failure could mean death. Yet it is precisely this danger that makes the triumph exhilarating, solidifying the bond between the conflict between secrecy and revelation drives much of the film's second act, and the live-action format amplifies the tension of Hiccup's double life. On one hand, he continues to nurture his bond with Toothless in secret, refining the mechanics of their flight and learning the nuances of dragon behavior. On the other, he is thrust into the public eye as his unconventional methods in the training arena bring him unexpected acclaim. This duality is emotionally exhausting for Hiccup, and the film captures his inner turmoil through small, quiet moments. Sleepless nights spent sketching in candlelight, nervous glances at his father across the dinner table, the weight of guilt as villagers cheer his apparent success in dragon fighting. The live-action acting makes these contradictions painfully visible. The joy Hiccup feels while with Toothless is radiant, but the moment he returns to the village, his posture slumps, his voice falters, and the mask of conformity slips over his face. This duplicity cannot last forever, and the narrative tension builds steadily toward exposure. Astrid becomes the pivotal figure in this conflict. Her discovery of Hiccup's secret is drawn out in live action with greater suspense. She confronts him with anger, suspicion, and disbelief, demanding explanation. Their heated exchanges are layered with emotional intensity as Astrid struggles between loyalty to Burke and fascination with Hiccup's truth. The eventual scene where she joins him on a flight with Toothless becomes not just a romantic interlude, but a transformative awakening. The terror in her face as they ascend into the clouds, followed by wonder as she gazes at the horizon, symbolizes her shift from skepticism to belief. This revelation also strengthens her bond with Hiccup, creating a partnership rooted not merely in attraction, but in shared courage to defy tradition. The secrecy thus collapses into revelation, and with it comes the inevitability of confrontation with Burke's entrenched worldview. The antagonistic force of the film, the monstrous dragon known as the Red Death, is foreshadowed with greater menace in the live-action version. While the animated film portrayed it as a colossal creature lurking in the shadows of its volcanic lair, the live-action slowly builds its presence through atmospheric hints. Villagers speak in hushed tones of dragons behaving strangely, raids increasing in frequency, and ships disappearing at sea. When Stoic embarks on his expedition to find the dragon's nest, the cinematography shifts into a darker, almost horror-like register. Fog swallowing entire ships, distant roars echoing across the ocean, the ominous silhouette of wings briefly visible against the moon. The gradual buildup transforms the Red Death into less of a surprise monster and more of an existential dread looming over Burke. This approach also ties into the film's themes of misunderstanding. While Burke sees dragons as chaotic attackers, the truth that they are enslaved by this colossal tyrant adds tragic depth to their plight. The live-action portrayal of the Red Death itself is terrifying. A grotesque fusion of reptilian and volcanic imagery, with glowing cracks along its scales and eyes that burn like embers. Its sheer size, captured through wide shots and scale comparisons with ships and cliffs, emphasizes the futility of facing it with brute force. By giving the Red Death such a menacing presence, the film underscores the impossibility of Burke's old methods, thereby elevating Hiccup's empathy-based approach as not just idealistic, but necessary for survival. The monster becomes a metaphor for the destructive cycles of fear and dominance, and defeating it requires not only physical courage, but ideological transformation. The climax of the film, the battle against the Red Death, gains an epic and visceral quality in live action that redefines the scale of the story. The sequence begins with chaos as Burke's warriors clash with swarms of dragons, and the raw violence of the skirmish is unflinching. Flames engulf ships, men are thrown into the sea, and the ground trembles with the Red Death's arrival. The visual spectacle is matched by emotional intensity, as Hiccup finally reveals Toothless to his father and the village, shattering the secrecy he has maintained. The confrontation between father and son, occurring amidst the chaos of battle, is profound. profoundly. Stoic initially reacts with rage and fear, believing Hiccup's bond with Toothless to be betrayal. But when Toothless saves him from certain death, the truth begins to pierce through his rigid worldview. The battle itself is choreographed not as a straightforward fight, but as a desperate struggle for survival. Hiccup and Toothless's aerial maneuvers are filmed with dizzying realism, the camera swooping between wings and flames, capturing the precarious balance of trust required to face a creature so immense. Each maneuver is a test of their bond, Hiccup's commands, Toothless's split-second responses, the synchronization of their wills. When they finally lure the Red Death into overexerting itself and crashing, the destruction is apocalyptic, with rocks and fire raining down upon the battlefield. Yet even in this climactic victory, the film emphasizes cost. Hiccup's fall and injury are rendered with heart-wrenching realism, the silence of the aftermath broken only by Stoic's anguished cries. The triumph is thus bittersweet, a moment of liberation shadowed by sacrifice. Live action ensures the audience feels every wound, every scream, every ounce of desperation, elevating the climax from spectacle to profound emotional catharsis. The aftermath of the battle is one of the most emotionally resonant sequences in the film, and live action brings an intimacy and gravity that makes it unforgettable. When Hiccup awakens after the battle, disoriented and weakened, the audience shares his confusion through blurred perspectives and muffled sound design. The revelation that he has lost his leg is delivered with quiet, devastating subtlety. The camera lingers not on gore, but on the small human reactions. Stoic's tearful relief at his son's survival, Astrid's gentle touch as she reassures him, and Toothless's low, mournful croon as he nudges Hiccup's hand. The prosthetic leg, designed with Gabber's help, symbolizes both loss and resilience, and the live-action portrayal makes its weight and awkwardness tangible. Hiccup's first steps with the prosthetic are tentative, painful, and deeply human, reminding the audience that heroism often leaves scars. Yet this loss is reframed not as tragedy but as transformation, aligning Hiccup more closely with Toothless, who also bears a physical disability. Their bond is deepened through shared vulnerability, and the film suggests that true strength emerges not from perfection but from perseverance and trust. The aftermath also shifts Burke's society. The villagers, once hostile and fearful, are now shown cautiously approaching dragons, offering food, touching them hesitantly, and slowly realizing that coexistence is possible. The shift is not instantaneous, but the visual imagery of warriors laying down weapons and children climbing onto dragon backs conveys a sense of radical change. The ending montage of villagers and dragons rebuilding together is tender and hopeful, underscoring the central message that peace requires courage not just in battle, but in imagination. Live action imbues these moments with a realism that makes the transformation feel both miraculous and believable, grounding myth in human truth. One of the most striking aspects of the live-action adaptation is how it reframes the theme of leadership. In the animated version, Hiccup's journey is often framed as personal growth, from misfit to hero. In live action, however, the emphasis is less on individual triumph and more on the transformation of communal values. Hiccup's leadership is portrayed not as charisma or strength, but as the willingness to see differently, to imagine alternatives where others see inevitability. This thematic shift resonates strongly in a live-action medium, where the cost of war is visibly etched on faces and landscapes. Leadership is not romanticized, but portrayed as profoundly difficult. Hiccup's defiance risks alienation. His ideas invite scorn, and his choices endanger those he loves. Yet it is precisely this willingness to endure misunderstanding that defines him as a leader. The film's final scenes, where Stoic acknowledges his son's vision, are not sentimental but weighty, acknowledging that changing a society requires humility from both generations. Stoic's line, delivered with gravitas, that Burke will need a new kind of chief, feels earned rather than inevitable. Leadership here is not about dominance, but about empathy, about the courage to admit that centuries of tradition may be wrong. The live-action portrayal of this theme resonates beyond the narrative. inviting the audience to reflect on how real-world societies grapple with cycles of violence and the possibility of change. By grounding these ideas in a world of dirt, sweat, and scars, the film ensures that the theme of leadership is not abstract but visceral, making the story feel timeless and urgently relevant. Finally, the live-action adaptation deepens the mythic resonance of How to Train Your Dragon by presenting its world as one caught between legend and reality. The dragons are both wondrous and terrifying, embodying the duality of nature itself, beautiful, dangerous, incomprehensible, yet capable of trust. The Vikings embody human resilience but also human short-sightedness, clinging to fear because it is familiar. Hiccup and Toothless stand at the crossroads, their bond a symbol of what can be achieved when imagination transcends inherited hatred. The film's cinematography reinforces this mythic quality through contrasts of light and dark, fire and water, earth and sky. Moments of intimacy between boy and dragon are filmed in soft, natural light, while moments of conflict are drenched in shadow and flame. This visual language elevates the story beyond a simple adventure into a parable about transformation. In live action, the myth becomes tangible. Dragons feel like creatures that could exist, villages feel like communities that could have lived, and the emotions feel like ones we might experience in our own lives. The story, therefore, resonates not only as fantasy but as allegory, reminding us that the cycles of fear and violence in our own world can be broken by empathy, courage, and imagination. By the time the credits roll, the audience is left not simply entertained, but challenged to reconsider what it means to lead, to trust, and to imagine a better way of living together. In this sense, the 2025 adaptation is not just a retelling, but a reawakening of the story's deepest truths, proving that myths endure because they speak to the timeless struggles of the human heart. As the story settles into its final rhythm, the live-action How to Train Your Dragon chooses not to rest on spectacle alone, but to lean into quiet moments that allow its themes to echo long after the climax. One of the most moving post-battle sequences shows Hiccup and Toothless resting together in the cove where their bond first began. This choice of setting is deliberate. It is a return to the place of origin, the quiet sanctuary where boy and dragon first chose trust over fear. The live-action cinematography heightens the sense of cyclical storytelling. The same shafts of light pierce through the canopy, but this time, the mood is not tentative curiosity, but serene companionship. Toothless lies beside Hiccup, folding his wings gently, his body language less that of a weaponized predator, and more that of a lifelong friend. Hiccup, bearing his prosthetic, leans into him, sketchbook once again in hand. But his drawings are different now, not studies born of uncertainty, but affectionate portraits drawn from love. This small gesture reflects the maturity of his journey. Knowledge has transformed into wisdom, and curiosity has blossomed into understanding. The audience, watching these quiet details, realizes that the story is not only about defeating the Red Death or proving oneself to a village. It is about learning how to coexist with the other, about the bravery required to see a monster and imagine a friend instead. By choosing this subdued coda, the film asserts that its true triumph lies not in battle, but in the gentleness of everyday bonds that endure after the war ends. The resonance of the live-action adaptation also comes from the way it reframes the relationship between humans and nature. While the animated films certainly carry this theme, the realism of live action brings it into sharper relief. The dragons, rendered with biological plausibility, become symbols of the natural world, powerful, unpredictable, and initially feared, yet also capable of harmony if treated with respect. In the final sequences, the villagers of Berk are shown tentatively integrating dragons into their daily lives. Dragons helping to lift heavy beams during rebuilding efforts, children laughing as they ride small species around village square. And farmers using dragons' warmth to dry harvests more quickly. These scenes carry an allegorical weight that resonates with contemporary audiences facing ecological crises. The idea that survival does not lie in conquering nature, but in partnership with it. Hiccup becomes emblematic of a new kind of hero, not the slayer of beasts, but the one who listens to them. The camera lingers on his interactions with Toothless in particular, highlighting small gestures like shared glances and synchronized breathing, suggesting a harmony that goes beyond words. By portraying dragons not as fantasy caricatures, but as living creatures with weight, texture, and agency, the film invites viewers to reflect on their own relationship with the non-human world. The message is both timeless and urgently modern, that the future of humanity lies not in domination, but in coexistence. In this way, the live-action How to Train Your Dragon becomes not only a retelling of a beloved story, but also a fable for the present moment, urging its audience to rethink what it means to live responsibly within the larger web of life. Ultimately, what gives the 2025 live-action adaptation its enduring power is the way it reframes myth as lived truth. By grounding the fantastical in the textures of reality, the grit of Burke's soil, the dampness of dragon scales, the scars on warriors' faces, the film ensures that its parable feels immediate and believable. The narrative arc, from enmity to friendship, from tradition to transformation, resonates because it mirrors struggles we all recognize. The fear of the unknown, the weight of expectation, the courage to imagine a different way. In its closing imagery, the film refuses to present a world perfectly healed. Instead, it shows a community still adjusting, still negotiating what it means to live alongside creatures once considered enemies. There is hope, but it is fragile. There is peace, but it is newly born. This refusal to oversimplify ensures that the story lingers not as a fairy tale, but as a myth that feels alive, adaptable to the challenges of any generation. For viewers, the final impression is not merely of a boy and his dragon, but of a universal truth, that the most transformative journeys often begin not with victory or conquest, but with a single act of compassion in the face of fear. Hiccup and Toothless, standing side by side, are no longer simply characters in a film. They become enduring symbols of what humanity can achieve when it chooses empathy over violence, trust over suspicion, imagination over resignation. In that sense, the 2025 How to Train Your Dragon is not only a movie, but a meditation. A reminder that the fiercest battles we fight are not against monsters outside of us, but against the fear and prejudice within.